ABC Sports Control New York, Frank Gifford.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of a great weekend of sports here on ABC. The Professional Bowlers Tour will start off our day today as Dave Dials and Nelson Burton Jr. will report the action. It'll be live from Windsor Locks, Connecticut on the Professional Bowlers Tour.
ABC Sports presents the Professional Bowlers Tour, live from Windsor Locks, Connecticut, the $100,000 Greater Hartford Open. After 42 games of qualifying, here's today's field. In 5th place, looking for his first PBA title, Jeff Bellinger. Qualifying 4th, a winner of 14 titles, making his 5th championship round appearance this season, Marshall Holman. In 3rd place, the top young player on the tour this year, Pete Weber. Qualifying 2nd and appearing in the championship round for the 3rd time in 7 weeks, Jeff Mattingley. And the leader looking for his first PBA title ever, Pete McCordic. That's today's field on the Professional Bowlers Tour. This is the 15th stop on the PBA Tour, and this is the 9th time over the years that the Tour has stopped at Bradley Bowl in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. And it's the last stop before the prestigious Firestone Tournament of Champions. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dave Dials, your regular host. Chris Schenkel, for whom I'm pinch hitting today, will be with you later in the afternoon on Wide World of Sports, live from Atlantic City to cover a light heavyweight fight. With me, of course, is Nelson Bo Burton. And Bo, 4 of our 5 finalists today have tremendous incentive because they could go to Akron and get in the Tournament of Champions by winning. But the other guy who is already in, I think, has a lot of incentive, too.
Well, I think so, Dave. Superstar Marshall Holman is probably the biggest news in sports today. He's 0-9 in championship rounds since winning at the King Louis in March last year. And he's had a dismal 194 average, but he looks mighty tough.
Well, you know, you talk about how he's 0-9, but about 149 of the 150 guys out here would trade places with him because he's cashed a lot, and next to Earl Anthony's made a ton of money. I know a lot of guys take his place.
Well, there's no doubt about his greatness. He's won many times before, and, you know, in those 9 appearances, he's won $58,000. But in retrospect, if he had won in all of those 9 appearances, he'd have won $143,000. So that's a big turnaround in money on Saturday afternoon. And before we went on the air, I had a chance to talk to Marshall and have him reflect on the money and his 0-9 record.
Bo, I think the reason I've been in a slump on TV is a couple of reasons. Number one, I've made a few key shots, bad shots, that have hurt me. And then I've had a few bad breaks. But, you know, if you get there often enough, it's going to turn around. And I'm looking forward to having it turn around right now. I feel positive. I always try and go into the championship matches with a positive attitude. And if I was Jeff Bellinger right now, I wouldn't want to bowl Marshall Holman.
Match 1, and he's going to have to bowl Marshall Holman. And Marshall has, I think, what you would call resolve today, Bo, rather than just determination.
I agree, Dave. I hope that 0-9 doesn't eventually cramp his style. To me, he's the most exciting bowler that's ever hit the Professional Bowlers Tour. And I'd hate to see him get in a cocoon and be very unlethargic out there. So let's see what happens today. Jeff Bellinger, the first shot, left-hand lane. Bellinger crossing over and leaving the 6-pin. David, on this championship here, they're going to have to do 2 things. Number 1 is keep the speed up because both these players are playing the outside trajectory down around the first arrow.
You saw the graphic there. No PBA titles, but this could be his day. Every time I do the show with you, you keep telling me there's never any excuse for a bowler to miss a 1-pin spare, but a couple of our bowlers today in the finals have had problems with spares, and we'll talk about that as the day progresses. And here's Marshall Holman. It's amazing that Marshall Holman, when he came in here this morning, here's a guy that nobody feels lukewarm about him. And there has been a turnaround in sentiment since he has been 0-9, Bo.
I agree. I think if he went on a campaign, a goodwill campaign, as being losing, and I think the general public, and I've seen it around the country, are now rooting for Marshall Holman. They realize he's a nice guy, and they want him to turn it around.
Just barely hung on for that. You know what he said? I could read his lips. I could hear him. He said, "That's my one bad shot for the day." That's exactly what he said.
The great style of the young man, the good steady head, cups through with his wrist, goes all the way through, sticks a little bit on the approach, but what he was talking about, Dave, is the pattern of losing has been getting ahead in the matches and making a bad shot. If he made any bad shot, it was on that one. Let's see what happens the rest of the game.
That's the Marshall Holman we've come to know and love.
Well, he's exciting, and he can do it all. He is, without a doubt, I think the best natural talent that we have out here on the Professional Bowlers Tour right now. In fact, the compliment was paid by Earl Anthony, someone who should know about talent.
And he's a better conditioned bowler today.
Agreed. Been working out hard in the last year.
Very nicely done. Jeff Bellinger. He's doing well. He's already made more money this year than he did all of last year, so he's a rapidly improving competitor.
Agreed, David. He's really improved. He's got that shoveling motion, a good pendulum arm swing, and the powerful forearms and wrists to impart the strength and the hook that you need for today's bowling conditions. Jeff Bellinger, coming into his own, has had a great month in the past 30 days.
Most months are about 30, 31 days.
As his wife looks on, thank you, partner. Phyllis rooting for Jeff. Jeff could take the lead with a strike here.
A lot of pin action there. For those of you watching at home, that may have looked like a little thinly hit. But because of, you've told me so many times on the telecast, because of the pin action that comes through there and just circulates them all.
Agreed. That's why you have to put spin and angle on the ball, Dave. The pins weigh approximately 32 to 36 pounds, depends on what weight we're using, and the ball only weighs 16, so you have to have angle and spin to knock them over.
Marshall lied to us. He said that was his one bad shot of the day. Now he's had two.
Well, the right-hand lane, I think, is the key today. It hooks a little more in lane 28 here at Bradley Bowl, but yet you can't throw it so hard to make it just set in the pocket. You have to finesse it a little bit, and there are going to be some mistakes made today, so you don't have to worry about getting behind. This pair of lanes is not real easy.
Marshall knows how to work a crowd, doesn't he?
Well, he is probably the most enjoyable player, I would say, to watch in the tour. He's exciting, he's unpredictable, and definitely flamboyant. And
a little volatile, yep.
I agree. But that's what you like to see. You don't want to see an Audubon out there or coned bowler, and Holman is the life of the tour. The 2-8-10. All the players were playing the outside line before we went on the air, but this particular lane, the right-hand lane, slides a lot farther down, and the ball doesn't finish. Now, it looks like that ball's going to come back to the pocket. Just doesn't quite make it. The 2-8-10, a tough split.
Well, the odds on that are not very good. Marshall Holman has fallen behind Jeff Bellinger in match number 1 on the Pro Bowlers Tour from the Bradley Bowl in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. In Kentucky Derby, and today one of the preludes, Bo, the Wood Memorial. Who do you like?
Air Force 1 should be good, but Laser Light is the money horse, Dave. I think he's got a chance.
And so does this man. Jeff Bellinger leaves the 7-pin. Thought he had it. Did he deserve it, Bo?
Well, it was really light, Dave. The head pin went to the sideboard and took out the 2-4-5, but it just didn't nick the 7. And he could have really put Marshall Holman on the ropes with that shot. He could have put him down 34 pins, but I don't believe in this championship round that we're going to see today we're going to see anybody run away from any one person in a particular game.
Why is that?
Pair of lanes just does not allow itself to roll as smoothly as all the lanes that we normally see, and there's a reason that we'll expound on in a few minutes.
Ooh, just barely held on for that. There's a picture that's worth a lot of words.
Well, Bellinger is like a wild stallion, if it may be. He's got a powerful ball. He's been bowling out on a tour for 3 years. But one thing that all of these players, except for Holman, really have trouble with some spares. The younger players are a little bit like baseball pitchers. They got the power, but they got to learn to control.
In other words, they're more thrower than pitcher.
You're right.
night again, Bo.
The left-hand lane is the characteristics of this pair, David. 27-28 Bradley Bowl. There's a 44 lane center, but the left-hand lane slides quite a bit more than the right-hand lane, so the players are having trouble coming up to the pocket on the left and staying out of the nose on the right. 2-7 cross lane, not too tough for a right-handed bowler because the ball is going with the grain of the wood.
Frank Esposito told me that Don Carter would make this 99 times out of 100.
Well, that's figured in that 2-to-1 odds.
Very nicely done. Here we see, coming up, our alternate, the man who finished sixth, just missed the finals.
Sam Macarone finished sixth, a good paycheck, but he was outdistanced by the top 5 players who were closely bunched in the 42-game format.
The one that Marshall Holman needed. He was trailing by 21 and had to come back with a strike there to reassert himself in this match.
Important shot coming up here in the 6th. Holman down by 21. Doesn't want Bellinger to be freewheeling up there. Can put some pressure on him if he can make a double and cut that lead from 21 down to 11 pins. Marshall taking his 1 re-rack allowed in the championship round. If he needs any more, he'll have to ask tournament director Harry Golden.
14 titles he has won. 16 times he has finished second. He is a champion. He walked away from that. He knew that, didn't he? It was one of those that when he let it go, he knew he had a strike, didn't he?
Dave, the man's in excellent shape. He knew it was perfect. He walked away. I think he's trying a little different style out there right now. Instead of trying to psych out his opponent, he's just letting his opponent know how good he is. Very few players can throw a ball that powerful, that smoothly, and walk away from it knowing it's going to be solid in the pocket for a strike.
What he did was put the ball in this man's court. There's a response for you. Here's a good old boy from Columbia, South Carolina.
Watch the 2-pin. That's the 3rd pin on the left-hand side of your screen. Watch it go to the sideboard. There it goes. Now watch the damage it does on the 4-7 and comes around with the 7-pin nudging over. 6 takes out the 10. What a great break. Can keep his lead at 11. He can reestablish it at 21 with another strike, David.
It's what you call total cooperation by all the pins, right?
3-pound, 3-ounce Surlyn-covered pins. We saw these in Milwaukee. If you can get them in motion, they're easy to knock down.
That was well done. There's his wife, Phyllis, watching on as Jeff Bellinger has a 21-pin lead in match number 1 against Marshall Holman. We'll be back from Windsor Locks in just a moment. Along with Bo Burton, this is Dave Dials, and next week, the climax, the conclusion, the crowning Firestone, and then the Professional Bowler Spring Tour begins on May 22nd. Interesting action there.
We'll be out in Torrance, California. Holman making a smart move. There's the practice lane. They were over there practicing. A player just threw a strike down there and it disturbed Holman because this is a critical shot for him. He's down by 21. 7th frame. He can cut that lead of Bellinger's down to 11 and put some pressure on him.
Somebody, one of the workmen out there was disturbing Marshall Holman a little bit, and as Bo said, Harry Golden always says something every week. The name of the game is concentration, and it really is. It's like a guy getting ready for a putt or a shot in golf. There you see Pete Weber. He was practicing, talked to his daddy a while ago.
When it rains, it pours. Unbelievable. Holman just could not get his thoughts together, sent it out wide and right in the old moat. Here he comes up the line. He's playing that outside trajectory, and Marshall always trusts the ball to the right. This time, there was the gray board right to the right, as we know it, and he gets 0 from the frame. He has to make this to have any chance in the match.
That is not the portrait of a happy man, I'll tell you that. We're going to see the gutter ball again.
See Marshall
in the channel.
Out about the 3rd board, but he just sent it a little wider than usual. Remember, he throws that big hook, and he can depend on it coming back, but once it slips off, it'll never come back, and even if it happened to bounce out, it wouldn't count, David. What a turnaround. He could have cut the lead down to 11. It now becomes 31 pins. He has to get his act together now.
A little mark of greatness there. can go back after that and regain his composure enough to throw a strike.
Well, looking back, if that first ball had been a strike as his spare shot, he'd have been only trailing by 1. Instead, he's trailing by 31. What a tremendous turnaround on one frame with the ball wide.
30 pins, and here's a man who can, I guess you'd have to say, can take control of the match right here. Got a break. Dead on the head pin. Somebody up there likes him today.
Dave, there has to be a cliche. Marshall Holman, nothing is going right for him. Everything right for Bellinger. Bellinger throws a shot that could have changed the match around and handed it right back to Holman. He throws it right in the nose and carries the 6-pin forward. If that was a 4-6 split, Holman would have been right back in the match. Now he trails by 41. What a turnaround.
He deserved the split, didn't he?
Well, you can't really say he deserved. He tried to get it when you throw him that high.
He was out there dangerously, too.
It's not over. He's left the 270. He's left. If he does not convert this, he's left Holman room to win this match. Same shot that happened earlier when he hung out wide. Holman had the 2-8-10, and here Bellinger gets the 2-10. Tough split, David.
How would you go about it?
You have to slide the 2-pin over into the 10. You have to hit the left side of the 2.
Oh, hit it too solidly. So he has an open frame, and that opens a door for Marshall Holman. Let's look at it again.
Bellinger catches a little too much of the 2-pin, drives it back into the pit instead of the 10-pin, but has set the situation up for Holman. Bellinger's going at a 2:13 pace. Marshall Holman still has a possible 2:16, but he has to throw strikes. Marshall in a position to come back and win this match, Dave. If he strikes here, he forces Bellinger to mark. If he strikes in the 10th and 11th, he would force Bellinger to double. So Holman, if he would like to end this winning streak, losing streak right here, is in a must situation. Needs to strike, taking a little extra time, David.
Consulting with Harry Golden there. He's apparently asked for a re-rack and got it. As you mentioned, if you can get one. If you ask for 2, you got to ask for it. You got to ask permission.
Well, it's in the tournament director's judgment whether those pins are in a fair position to strike. They are legal, but the players like them perfectly on spot. Sometimes the machine hits it. Right now, Holman needs a strike.
Very thin. What caused that? What caused him to be thin on that?
Well, he just sent it wide. It's very similar to the ball he threw in the channel. Here it is out wide, and he needed to come back to the strike. Holman's a truss player. He's not going to pull the ball when he needs it. Just went too wide, but he needed that strike. This is going to be defeat number 10 for Marshall Holman. The best he can do, David, is 194. Jeff Bellinger needs 2 pins to win the match. Disappointing, I know.
You think that the guy is 0 for 10 in championship, maybe he will start believing that there is such a thing as a jinx?
Well, I think the real test will be next week at the Firestone. Marshall Holman, things have a way of turning around at the Firestone Tournament Champions, and don't count that man out.
So Jeff Bellinger is the winner of our first match. A guy who practices 150 games a week. The young man that he will face, of course, will be Pete Weber in match number 2. Let's pause now to hear from some of the sponsors of the professional bowlers. All right, here's the way the $100,000 breaks down. First prize is $13,000, $7,500 for second, $5,500 for third, $4,500 for fourth, and just staying in there gets you $4,000, and that's what Marshall Holman will take home. And coming up next, Jeff Bellinger against Pete Weber. The Professional Bowlers Tour is going to continue after this message from one of our sponsors and station identification, so stay tuned. Along with Nelson Burton Jr., this is Dave Dials, and you see it right in front of you. Bellinger over Holman, 213 to 192, and Marshall Holman is now 0 for 10 in championship matches dating back to Kansas City and the King Louis.
Dave, and one thing that does assure that we will have a new winner today. None of these other 4 players left is eligible for the Firestone Tournament Champions, and a good friend of yours from Parkersburg, West Virginia, gets knocked out. Sam Flanagan got knocked out in the last week. We'll have a new winner.
Well, I feel terrible about that, because we like to keep those down home boys in there.
Hey, that tax money will work good in your area.
He rocked it a little bit, did Pete Weber, but didn't get it. And I talked an hour or so ago with our great friend, a great man, and Hall of Famer, Dick Weber. It's his daddy. And he said, I said, you have any advice for young Pete? And he said, yep, just keep it together, keep your head straight, and stick to basics. He said he has a tendency to get a little too excited.
Well, he's bowled sensationally well, but then fallen apart in other matches. So we'll see what happens.
I'm sure all of you noticed that extremely high arc back swing, and we're going to be talking about that and probably showing it to you as we progress in this match against Jeff Bellinger, who defeated Marshall Holman. Starts off with a strike.
Jeff Bellinger takes a back seat to no one. He's bowled 2 times. He bowled in the finals of the King Louis Open, and he defeated Marshall Holman here. And look at this release. One of those powerful forearms of a player on the tour. Watch how he keeps his hand underneath the ball. See it all the way underneath it. Then he reveals it with a good, solid loft and lift about 18 inches out over the foul line. That is perfect.
And the pop reminds one a little bit of Mark Roth, who gave me some good news yesterday. Great news for him and his wife, Jackie. Mark said, tell the world that we are expecting our first baby.
In December.
Mark finished 7th in this tournament. Made a great comeback, great strides last night.
Bellinger, David, is trying to play both lanes about the same and throw a little slower on the left-hand lane, which is slicker. And that time he just threw it too slow. It didn't set up. And Jeff's one of the many young players that switches to a harder ball or a new ball for spares, so it will slide more.
Pick up.
You heard the guy in the background say, come on, Pete. I wonder what Dick Weber is saying as he sits out there at his home in Missouri. I bet he's yelling at the television set too, isn't he?
Same thing.
Say, come on, Petey.
Pete Weber using a urethane bowling ball, one of the new ones made, and Jeff Bellinger using the polyester ball this week.
Very well done.
Pete, at a tender age of 19, really has a well-rounded bowling education because of his father's tutelage and because of his father's bowling center. His father's particular bowling center, Dave, bowls what we call a track conditioner, worn on the right. And his wife, Dee Dee, looks on, is worn on the right, where Peter had to learn to keep the ball in that track or worn area, and many of the urethane lane finishes allow you to hook it a lot. So he's got the best of both worlds and could be a superstar in years to come.
19, been bowling for 17 years. That's right, 17. 2 in a row for Pete Weber. All right, Bo, tell me about this high arc here.
Well, the high arc, you know, Petey's just a little guy and he has to throw a powerful ball with a lot of speed, so you have to do it with the big arc. Remember Wayne Zahn, who came out and dominated bowling quite a bit in the 60s, had that high arc. They said it'd never last, but if you have the rhythm, you can generate the power and accuracy.
You knew that was going to be bad because you left it out there too far. Let's take a look once more.
Bellinger playing a much different line than young Weber. He's playing outside the track or worn area on the right-hand side. He's playing out around the third board. Young Pete Weber in around the third arrow where the lane is much more worn. Just
within a whisker, but he leaves 2. And the first time in match number 2, the door has been opened for young Pete Weber. And, you know, Pete's only 19, but he's been out here for 3 years, and he's been close several times. This could be the week that he does it.
Well, he's got things under control, David. He's definitely matured quite a bit, and he's had 5 championship round appearances this year so far, so that will give you a little lesson, a little experience in itself.
Lots of pin action, so Bellinger responds to the challenge. Bellinger and Weber. Bellinger trailing by 25 pins in match number 2 from Bradley Bowl in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. And we'll be right back after this timeout. Sunday coming up on ABC Sports, and a big Saturday starting out here, Windsor Locks, Connecticut. The Pro Bowlers Tour, and if the name Weber strikes a familiar tone to you, that's as it should be. Pete Weber, son of Dick Weber, leading by 25 against Jeff Bellinger. Not an ounce of deviation in his last 3 shots. All right on the same line, all right in the same area of the pocket, and all 3 strikes, Bo.
David, he's just bowling as well as anybody on the tour right now. He left a solid 10 in the first frame, then buried 3 more for strikes. He's waiting for the ball so well. The hardest thing to do in the game of bowling is wait for the ball, especially with that high backswing. Weber's just letting it happen and not forcing it. He looks very tough out there today.
That he's waiting for the ball. Now, can you make an analogy there between that and golf? You hear golf pros all the time saying wait and wait for the action, wait for the ball.
Well, very simply, if you try to pull the trigger on a golf club too quickly, either your hips slide by or you don't get the leverage and hit the ball squarely. Same way with a bowling ball. You cannot force it.
Wait for it to happen all at once. And Jeff Bellinger has fallen behind young Pete Weber. You talk about a kid being only 19 years old. He's been out here for 3 years. As Bo mentioned, when you've been in the finals as many times as he has, that has a tendency to mature you, I think. So shouldn't be deceived by looking at him saying, gee, he's only 19.
Jeff Bellinger, this is his 2nd championship round appearance. He made it in the Mattingley Open, then up here at Greater Hartford Open. And he's a man you're going to hear a lot from. He's a strong guy. He's got a real nice compact swing, and he's a good, hard fighter out on the lanes.
He's been scattering them all afternoon, and that time scattered all but 1, left to 7.
Well, Jeff is playing the long line to the pocket. He's too far outside, depending on that ball to break so sharply at the back end. He almost leaves the 7-10 on a wall shot there. The head pin came across, knocked the 4 into the 10. But he's going to have to get lucky to catch up to young Weber while he's playing that line.
And Pete Weber now leads by 46 pins. This a most important frame for him. He's working on 4 in a row and bowling in the 6th frame. Cry goes up in the background. Pete, Pete, Pete.
Well, he's sure doing it. He's leading by 56 pins. 6 great shots to start the match. He had that solid 10 the first frame. Got a little break there where he tripped out to 4-9. But he definitely has the gauntlet in hand. He's got Bellinger under his foot, and he can just mash him with another strike here.
Round of applause for a great start by Pete Weber. Was that pressure that caused him to go across and hit the Brooklyn there, Bo?
Not so much pressure, David. I think it's just the human element. You talked about that high backswing having trouble with control, and every once in a while, especially a power player that's young like that, when he misses, he'll miss 3 or 4 boards to the left of his target. You get an erratic shot like that, it breaks all the way across the Brooklyn. He got a good break and an easy spare.
Pete Weber has match number 2 well in hand against Jeff Bellinger. We're at Windsor Locks, Connecticut for the Greater Hartford Open, and we will be right back.
Muhammad was 7 pounds over the weight and got TKO'd by Braxton in his last fight. Let's see if he's in shape for this fight. It'll be an interesting fight if he isn't. He should win if he's in shape, though.
Jeff Bellinger is in bad shape in this match with Pete Weber.
Well, Bellinger tried to make a move inside of more of the trajectory. See, his ball's in on about the 12th board at the 45-foot mark. He took a gamble, moved inside. He did make the right guess by moving inside, but he didn't move far enough left. If he's going to catch up in the match, he needs almost all strikes and disaster to hit young Weber.
And you could see him talking to himself. I'll tell you, don't want the door open any wider than that for Pete Weber.
I think it opened and closed in one shot. Here's Jeff. He just kind of lost it. As you said before, a lot of these young players, David, has struggled quite a bit with spares when they quit striking, and Jeff has had trouble getting strikes in this match with only 2 strikes in the first 7 frames. He's going at a 170 pace.
And the old grandpa, Dick Weber, can sit back down in his chair now and relax, I think. That's a strike, but carefully, it probably comes a little late in this match against Pete Weber. We're going to watch the way he lofts the ball.
All right, you want to get the ball about 18 to 24 inches over the line and have it land like an airplane. You see the ball goes up. That one area, he had a little extra bounce on. He was out about 2 feet. But that's the lift putting the ball out there and not throwing it out there. Look at the action on the pins. Saws that 5 into the 4-7. Good strike, but it may be a little too late.
Looked like a good hit.
Another solid 10, just part of the game, David. The 6-pin goes flying up around the 10. You'll watch it be the 2nd pin on the right-hand part of your screen. It normally goes to the sideboard and actually comes back and hits the 10. Watch what happens here. There it goes up in the air, hits the sideboard, but doesn't come back and get the 10. Definitely a wrap.
It's a young man who's cashed in 9 of 14 tournaments. Coming up before long, Nelson Burton Jr.'s tip on deadwood rolls.
And for the neophyte that doesn't know what deadwood, that's the pins that have already been knocked down, David, and are out of play. What to do with them? It's interesting. Many people misinterpret that rule.
And we're going to try to enlighten you on that today. That shuts the door, doesn't it? There's Dee Dee. She likes that.
She's checking the scoreboard, but there's not much to check. If young Weber doesn't even show up, he's got a 208 game. The best Jeff Bellinger can do is 200. It's going to be a very tough match coming up. Young Weber against Jeff Mattingley, who finished with a 260 average for the last 5 games last night.
Dead on the head pin.
Dave, you have to wonder what Marshall Holman's thinking about. Here, Bellinger got a bunch of good breaks against him and knocked him out, keep his streak going, and then he completely falls apart against young Weber. I guess when you're snake bit, they don't let loose very easily. Bellinger could have the dubious distinction of rolling possibly the lowest game in the championship round this year. If he doesn't convert this, he'll be in the 150s.
But he did convert it. Pete Weber, the winner, and finally he permits a small smile to crease his face. And his dad, of course, is celebrating out in St. Louis. And coming up, he'll be taking on Jeff Mattingley in match number 3 from Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Stay tuned. When you see the flight board, it was Bellinger over Holman and then Weber over Bellinger, and now it's going to be Weber versus Mattingley as we climb the stairs toward the championship, the Greater Hartford Open. You know, one of the rules that's often misinterpreted and often misunderstood is the Deadwood rule. And that's the subject of our Bowler's Tip of the Week this week by Nelson Burton Jr.
The Professional Bowling Tip of the Week is brought to you by Rolaids.
Today we're going to show you situations that sooner or later all bowlers are going to encounter that may be the difference between winning and losing a match. These situations all center around a little-known rule involving illegal pinfall. Example 1, deadwood pins. If these pins help in creating pinfall in any manner, the shot does not count and cannot be reshot. The score is 0 for that ball. Another example is when the ball, after being thrown, enters the channel only to jump out and create pinfall. This shot is also null and void, and the score for that ball is also 0. The bottom line, if you roll a ball into the channel, the result is 0 for that shot. Also, if you roll a ball where there is deadwood on the pin deck or in the channel, the result is the exact same, 0 for that shot.
The Dallas Morning News, 3 a.m.
Came in there, and Pete McCordic stayed there for rounds 4, 5, and then by 3 pins retained the #1 position last night.
42-game format. We're down to the last 2 matches to see who goes to the Firestone Tournament of Champions. Last spot available. Somebody's going to make it.
And this is Jeff Mattingley from Ukiah, California. Tell me about his style, Bo.
Well, Jeff is one of the original crankers or power players that came out on a tour with Roth and Holman. He throws the big hook ball. He depends on staying wide. He depends on real good carry at the back end. And when he gets hot, David, just almost Katie bar to the door. He strikes almost every time.
He was so hot last night in the finals. Boy, just amazing.
260 in the last 5 games with a 287 climax.
He was really awkward at the line there. I don't know whether we're going to be able to see that again or not. I guess we are. Why was he so awkward at the line?
Jeff has a history of having a little trouble with approaches and with spares, and the combination of the two right here, he slips a little bit on the foul line. His shoulders were behind the foul line. His shoulders were too far forward. David lets it get away, slides right by the 2-pin, open the door for young Weber in the first frame.
Started that just like he did the last match. Good pocket hit and left it in.
Keep it wide, keep it out of trouble. But with that powerful ball that Pete Weber and Jeff Mattingley throw, if they can keep the ball in a light or thin pocket, don't go up high in the nose, David, they're going to get a lot of strikes and some big scores.
And you're going to avoid splits that way, aren't you?
Definitely, except for the real light split we saw in the first match where you have the 2-8-10 or the 2-10.
Weber was plus 11 because Mike knows you should not miss that, and he didn't.
Weber throws quite a bit harder at spares, and that's really a good idea, a good tip to take for anyone, is that you just have to touch the spare to knock it over, and Jeff Mattingley knows that as he went by the 2-pin last frame. You need that extra speed. Somewhere up around 20 miles an hour that ball was thrown by young Weber, and the average strike ball, David, is around 18 for ideal strike carry.
We may be having a young hero coming on the tour here. The crowd picking up the chant, Pete, Pete, Pete.
Well, it's good for bowling, and many of these fans have been here year after year after year. They feel very comfortable coming down to the championship round, and they pick a favorite and root for him. You can't blame them for that.
And they recognize that name, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Mattingly stayed up at the line an extra moment or two, and you look at him and you ask yourself, does he know why he did that, or is he trying to figure out why he did that?
I think only he can answer that question. Jeffrey was using a hard plastic ball in practice, has switched to a urethane ball. For what reason, only he knows. We'll see what happens later on in the match.
And it's 2 in a row. This is almost unheard of. Almost unheard of. but no curve on the ball at all. Tried to throw it absolutely straight, almost like we used to call the old backup ball.
I agree, David, but actually that is probably the best percentage of making spares, but Jeffries, probably his blood pressure went up about 80 points when he slid by that second one. He threw too much hook on the first one, tried to compensate on that slid by. He's only got 18 in the second frame.
You got to wake up. And pulled it too much, got on the Brooklyn side.
Well, Jeff is in what the players call possible buzzard position, David. If you get 3 strikes in a row, we call it a turkey, but if you get 3 opens in a row, we call it a buzzard. If he would happen to miss here, he would have the first buzzard of the season on the Pro Bowlers Tour.
It's not funny, but he's managing a smile. He's a class gentleman.
Jeff Mattingley gets that ball well out over the foul line, hand underneath it, and very much like Bellinger, lofts the ball out about 2.5, 3 feet on the lane, and he uses that to delay the hook. It keeps the ball from breaking too quickly.
It's almost as though he's pitching it out there.
Well, he has that low profile, and he is underneath the ball with those powerful forearms. He does lift it out with his wrist, though. You don't want to just throw it out. To release the young Pete Weber, watch the great wrist action. Watch that hand. Now see where that wrist is? Perfect shot right there. And the hand and wrist rotate around the ball. That imparts the many revolutions. He gets up to 15 on some shots. That's what eats up the pins and gets the good hook, David.
Pete Weber, 19 years old. I don't even remember being 19.
Sometimes I still think you are 19, David, even though I know you're maybe even pushing 50 now.
Yeah, from which side? Pete Weber is on a roll, 3 in a row. There you see D.D. Weber giving lots of applause, as are the fans here at the Bradley Bowl, as Pete Weber goes against Jeff Mattingley, and we'll be right back after this.
Being a lumberjack, you'd think the last thing I'd do on my day off is climb a tree. If you knew how much we got for winning, you'd know we don't do it for the money. But after it's over, the one thing we'd better get is a really great beer.
Nice race. Come on, guys. It's Miller time.
Miller time. Time for America's quality beer.
You know I let you win, don't you?
Miller High Life.
If you've got the time, Miller's got the beer.
Nobody has to tell me to get on the stick. With the wide stick, I don't waste time or money. See, Speed Stick deodorant is so much wider than the other leading stick. Gives you effective protection in just a few strokes. And if you've been using an aerosol, look, you'd use up 2 3-ounce sprays and start a third before you'd use up 1 2.5-ounce Speed Stick. So get on the stick.
Makes sense.
The wide stick, Speed Stick deodorant.
By Menon.
Tomorrow on ABC Sports Beat, Howard Cosell talks with world record hurdler Ronaldo Nehemiah about his move from track to pro football. Then on the Emmy Award-winning American sportsman, model Lauren Hutton meets the African bushman. And the first successful trans-Pacific balloon flight. Another sensational Sunday tomorrow on ABC.
I understand that we are having occasional transmission problems. That's not it there. But our crack technicians are working on it. The fault is not in your set. And the fault is not with Pete Weber today, I'll tell you that, leading by 45. You want to know what I'm impressed by right now? That the bowlers wait through that commercial break. And here's a 19-year-old young man who waits through that break and comes back, throws a strike. That tells me something, doesn't it?
You can't beat discipline and experience. Young Weber has kept his concentration together. He's found it in some of the other championship rounds. He's been red hot, such as in the Peoria True Value Open. He was red hot, then lost it. He said he just lost his concentration. He's kept it very well so far today.
And they get a double in 8. That's his first really bad hit of the day.
Dave, he has to do what you were talking about. He has to make the adjustment on the lane. The left-hand lane apparently has dried out in the track area, the worn area between the second and third area. The ball is breaking a little sharper than he wants it. He has to make a move left on the approach, farther left on the approach, and throw that ball a little more inside between the third and fourth arrow.
he has, in the past, had some trouble with spares.
Well, he said that was lack of concentration, but look, he's taken a little extra time today, and he's been perfect with the spares so far.
Perfect there. In the 8th, Pete Weber with a spare. He is leading Jeff Mattingley by 45 pins. Mattingley, it would seem, has to do it now or forget it. And he didn't do it.
Mattingley, with the best he can do with a conversion here, and strikes in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, a 4-bagger finish will be a 2-0-4 game as he cuts right through the heart, leaves the 3-6, the same spare that young Weber left in the 8th frame. Also, watch the difference in style. Mattingley, with not as much speed as young Weber, may have a little more trouble. Good shot.
We should mention, too, that the defending champion, Wayne Webb, finished 49th. And people say, where's Art Trask this week? Doing very well, thank you. He's a 3-time winner on the tour. He told me last night, I just wasn't up psychologically this week. It's the week before Akron. And so it was kind of a down week for him. Earl Anthony is not competing this week.
And Trask got some money. I think he finished 38th place out of the 53 spots paid in the tournament.
Leaves the 10. Been several opportunities today for Jeff Mattingley to surge back into this match. But each time he's had that opportunity, he has not taken advantage of it. And Pete Weber is well in control, I would think.
Jeff just made a bad guess at the onset of the match. He missed 2 easy spares, which really started him in trouble, but then he played the wrong line to the pocket.
How important is this shot right here for Pete Weber?
Well, it's just a matter of keeping his concentration, I think, now, Dave. The best Jeff Mattingley can do is a 193, barring any complete failure by young Weber, such as a breaking leg or something. He's going to be well in the 200, so he's got the match in hand if he just completes the game.
What a way to complete it. A strike in the 9th. And once again, you hear the chant, Pete, Pete, Pete.
Pete, a possible 249 with 3 more strikes.
If you're wondering, Pete Weber is 5'7" and 135 pounds with lead weights and he slacks. Crossed over and got by with it on the Brooklyn. Pete Weber. Coming up next, this young man, Pete Weber, against Pete McCordic. The Professional Bowlers Tour will continue after this message from one of our sponsors and station identification.
The field for the Greater Hartford Open, David, 1982. Total purse, $100,000. Size of the field, 160 players. Average in cash, 48th place, 207. Top 24, 212. Not a bad scoring tournament. And here's some of the other players finish. Macaron real close. Papa to be Ross. Sutar steady. Kenny Fernandez boonballing it down there. Mr. Gibson in there. Don Janella from last week. Steady Mike Durbin looking forward to Firestone. Good-looking Baker up there. Kenny Hall coming back from the Cleveland Open. Sliker's not going to see the Firestone this year. Haskell in there. Tommy Lasko. Paul Moser, the only lefty. Jay Robinson tuning up again. Roy Buckley in there. Steady Bill George. A name from the past. Doc Iandoli making a cameo appearance. Frank Ellenberg, the Masters champion. And Randy Pedersen run out the top 24.
All right, you see what's happened. Bellinger over Holman. Holman now 0 for 10. And Weber over Bellinger. Weber over Mattingley. Look at those scores for Pete Weber. 226, 238. And now one of these Petes is going to make it to Akron. McCordic or Weber.
Well, momentum definitely has to be in the favor of young Pete Weber. He's got as much experience as any player this year. He's 5 times in a championship round, but he's going against a very tough player, experienced Pete McCordic, who doesn't give matches away. He's a tough competitor.
Out of Houston, Texas. The first one, you can't get them all. Pete McCordic strikes in the first.
The key to watch for young Pete Weber, not only thinking about winning his first title, but can he hit the left-hand lane? We saw he got out to a quick start in the last match, and then he seemed to lose the left-hand lane, crossing over for a strike, going through the nose for the 3-6 spare, and then he went high again in the 10th frame. Let's see what he does. He's apparently killing the right-hand lane, but he has to put them both together to win the match. Pete with 5-step approach, using a whole approach, but he's stiff-legged a bit on his 3rd step. Watch as he comes through the 3rd step. See, he's stiff-legged, then gets a good knee bend, follows through straight to the target, and see how deep he's playing on the lane. He's almost sliding in the left-hand channel. Big shot here. He's looking down at the approach, going to make an adjustment to the left, Dave. It's important that he gets this one close to the pocket.
I think he made the right adjustment, though, didn't he?
Didn't he? He struck, Dave, but he didn't strike, but he did make the right adjustment, and it's going to carry on through the match. If he can just give it plenty of room like that on every shot, he'll keep the ball in play, and he'll get his share of strikes with that big strike hook ball he throws.
And that has to help him psychologically.
Has to make this spare first, though.
And he does it. Well, we talk about the tremendously loyal audience of people who watch the Pro Bowlers Tour on television. A couple of nice young friends of mine, Barbara Smith and Chap Brown. Chap's a former tennis great at University of Florida, getting married this afternoon, so they're taping the Pro Bowlers show today so they can watch it on their honeymoon.
Ah, congratulations.
A little thin.
Thought he had a strike, the right-hand lane, a little bit tighter. Pete went through that shot very well, but remember, he only had 3 practice balls on each lane, so he wasn't absolutely sure that the lanes were different. Now he knows the right-hand lane is about a board tighter than the left-hand lane.
No PBA title so far for this man. This could be his first one. Tip on that. That's not an easy spare to make.
He made a great shot. Here's the form of Pete McCordic. The only little problem that Pete may have is occasionally he'll lose his backswing out to the right, but he comes straight through the shot with good lift, good follow through, and he's one of the steady players on the Pro Bowlers Tour.
You can see the beads of perspiration there. Second place finishes 1973 Northern Ohio Open, the 1978 Portland Open, the 1978 Buffalo Open. We dasn't call him a bridesmaid, but he's been knocking at the door a little bit. He's no kid out there.
Style similar to another former bridesmaid, Art Trask, who finally got it together and won 3 titles so far this year.
He does own lane 28, doesn't he?
No doubt about it, that high backswing, the strong, powerful ball of young Pete Weber, keep his eye on the target all the way through and follow through towards the target. Notice how the inside of the forearm of young Weber goes right towards that 3rd arrow, solid in the pocket. No doubt about that one. Match all even through 3 frames.
And going up by 10 pins in the championship match against Pete McCordic. We'll be back from Windsor Locks, Connecticut right after this. Burton Jr., this is Dave Dials. We're live from Windsor Locks, Connecticut. And to some of you out there, it may not seem that we are totally live because we are having continuing transmission problems. The fault is not in your set. We do apologize. We are attempting to make corrections. We could correct our transmission problems as well as Pete Weber has corrected his problems on lane 27. We'd be in like a burglar, wouldn't we?
You're right, David. He made a good shot in the fourth frame. He sent it wide, blew the 5 out. And McCordic coming up in the fourth frame, trying to tie the match back up, left the weak 10. Has to go cross lane with extra speed, make sure on this spare.
He's pressed up against the ball return. Pete McCordic out of Houston, Texas, 10 years on the tour and no victories. Bo Burton talked with him earlier and asked him why he's done so well here.
I think the main reason I bowled so well this week here is during the finals I was able to move out and play between the first and second arrow, going pretty much up the boards. This is my best shot. It enabled me to carry. I felt real comfortable with the shot. I was able to make good shots and got loose with it.
But he can't play that line today. He has to play between the second, third arrow, the track area.
I noticed last night as he was just barely holding on to his lead. He went against Marshall Holman, and Marshall threw a heck of a game at him. And Pete never smiled once until it was all over, and he knew that he was in the driver's seat. Never cracked a smile.
Well, Holman had actually caught him with about 3 frames left, but McCordic came back with a turkey to be the tournament leader. Pete Weber could take a 20-pin lead with 1 more strike.
Somebody for that. Fortuitous again, right?
No doubt about it. He has the 4-7-10 going in there. He's cutting through. The 6-pin lays down in the channel. The 3-pin comes over and gives him a little love tap. Great break.
And the old man's out there in St. Louis going, blow that 10-pin over. Very, very fortuitous. Pete Weber. We're going to take one more look at Pete Weber's release.
If you want to learn how to energize the bowling ball, emulate this release. The thumb down early in the release, wrist right on the side, medium loft, about 12 inches over the foul line, good roll. He gets up to 15 revolutions in the 60-foot of lane, David. A power shot.
That says it all, doesn't it? Pete McCordic and Pete Weber.
Amazing how the game of bowling equalizes so quickly. Weber got a great break in the 5th frame when he broke up the 4-7-10. Then he leaves a shot you very seldom ever leave, a solid 9. That ball cutting through so sharply, the 5-pin got chopped off the 9. Normally that's a strike. Pete has to settle for a spare.
Gets it. This young man who is 5th in earnings in 1982. If he could win here today, you know, he'd go over the $100,000 mark in career earnings. Said, take that money today and make a down payment on a new house for myself and Dee Dee.
Well, that wouldn't be a bad idea right now. Pete McCordic hit light, left the 2-4-8 in the 2nd frame on the right-hand lane, then left the soft or weak 10 on a real good shot in the 4th. He needs a strike here in the 6th to take the lead in the match for the first time.
A little thin. Pete McCordic has an identical twin brother, Paul, who's also a PBA member. Plays at the regional level, but I wouldn't say they're identical because his brother's left-handed.
Well, Paul bowled a little bit on the tour and had some success, but Peter by far has proved to stick with the game more and been more diligent and has improved into a real great player.
Pete McCordic with a spare up in the 6th. Also not a simple pickup there. Trailing by 7.
One thing I like about McCordic's style is how he's so methodical and how he hits the foul line so solid. You very seldom ever see McCordic fall off balance. He's got everything in time as he comes through with the shot.
Pete McCordic with a strike in the 7th.
No doubt about it. Solid in the 1-3. The ball carries through the 5. 5 takes out the 8. And the ball carries through and knocks the 9 out. Just steamrolled them over, all 10 in the pit.
Putting the pressure back on 19-year-old Pete Weber. He does not believe it.
Solid 9 in the 6th, solid 10 in the 7th frame. The 6 pin just flies right over above the 10. Peter kind of blocks it out, but when we call it a solid 10 is when the 6 pin doesn't lay in the channel. Didn't like that reaction.
Still shaking his head.
He's been good with the spares so far today. You said he struggled a little bit in the tournament, but he's taken extra time, and they've been so important in the matches thus far.
Lead is now down to 6 pins. Pete Weber now on the lane where he has made a considerable adjustment. The left lane, the 27th, and probably saying to himself, now would be a very good time to get a strike, that I can put the ball back in McCordic's court.
Agreed. He will keep the lead. He doesn't want to have McCordic come up there without Pete Weber having a strike posted in the 8th frame. Only 6 pins separate the 2 players.
Dead on the head pin.
Just did send it out wide enough. We noticed the other shots that he was around the pocket on the left-hand lane in the 2nd, 4th, where he got a strike, in the 6th frame where he left a solid 9. We're very wide. This ball breaks much earlier. He cuts through and leaves the 3-10 baby split.
See the odds there. 2-1 for a pro. And he is a pro. And he misses it. He gets the 10, leaves the 3.
Surprises me, he went with a hook ball after that, David. He throws the straight ball for the 6 pin, the 10 pin, the 9 pin, all his single pin spares, and yet the hook ball cuts down his odds of making the 3-10. The straight shot, as he had been using those single pin spares, would have been a much better choice.
You think that's lack of experience, maybe, or?
Indecision, I think. Peter has the experience, but right now McCordic is in the lead for the first time. He took the lead sitting on the bench. He can increase the lead to 17 with a strike.
We're going to watch Pete McCordic from behind.
2 things to watch with Peter is watch his arm swing as it bumps out slightly to the right at the top of the swing, but how he realigns and gets it right in close to his ankle, almost slides, hits himself in the ankle as it goes by his foot.
Weren't you playing with him one time when he did hit his ankle?
On a 297 game, he had 11 in a row, hit his ankle, and missed the head pin on the right, but good discipline by this young man.
Well, as the old announcer, the late Van Patrick, used to say, we now have a cliffhanger on our hands.
Anybody's match.
A trip to Akron is, I suppose, as big a prize as anything else. $13,000 to the winner here today, but everybody wants to go to Akron.
McCordic can ensure himself of a chance to win the tournament if he can strike on this ball, because no matter what Pete Weber does, if McCordic strikes, he can still win the match.
Now the crowd saying ahead of time, come on, Pete.
It's anybody's match, whoever can perform in the 9th and 10th. McCordic cannot be shut out. He still has a possible 220. Young Pete Weber, a possible 213. Yet 7 pins separate the 2 players. 2 frames to go. Well, it'd almost be impossible, David, to have a tie, I think, because Weber would have to strike and get 7 on this ball, and McCordic be spare and strike. So I guess you're right. It could be a tie, but right now, young Weber has to strike to take the lead in the match. See trust. Pete Weber started that ball from the left-hand channel all the way out to about the 6th board and broke it all the way back. He covered about 13 boards in the last few feet of the lane, getting it up to right around the light area, and he's taken the lead in the match. In order to have a tie now, David, we would need a 7 count or 6 count out of Pete Weber. We would have a possible tie.
Look at this. Look at that excitement.
Pete Weber with a 7 count or better will force Pete McCordic to throw 2 strikes. Needs 7 or better to force Pete McCordic to strike twice.
You saw the graphic before. He has never won a PBA title.
Just enough, David. 7's as good as a strike, because what that sets up is a 2-10 game. McCordic must strike twice to win. If he strikes and gets 9, the final score would be 209 to 210. The graph is correct. McCordic needs 2 strikes to win. He has not had a strike on the right-hand lane in the match. He was light in the 2nd frame. He left a 10-pin in the 4th. He was light in the 6th, left a 4-pin in the 8th. Right now, he can afford no more non-strikes on the right-hand lane.
And he leads the 7, and you see Pete Weber and Dee, and they're talking about a new house.
And a trip to the Firestone.
That's not perspiration, ladies and gentlemen. Those are tears of joy. And there's some being shed in St. Louis right now, too, I guarantee you. There you see Pete Weber. Watch his reaction to that last non-strike by Pete McCordic. That gives him the championship, sends him to Akron. We'll be right back. You know, there you see a happy Pete Weber, just 19 years old. The 9th time the Pro Bowlers Tour has been here at Bradley Bowl. That's his wife, Dee. The check being presented by Ken West, the president of West Enterprises, a $13,000 check and a trophy, and Red Burnham, the general manager, is on hand. And once again, the winner of the Greater Hartford Open is Pete Weber. Final score 210 to 199. Stay tuned next over most of these stations for ABC's Wide World of Sports, featuring live the light heavyweight fight between Matthew Saad Muhammad and Pete McIntyre from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And also live the Wood Memorial from Aqueduct Racetrack in New York. Travel arrangements made through and a promotional fee paid by United Airlines. United flies more people to Hawaii than any other airline. That's what friendly skies are all about. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports.